Welcome back to Exquisitely Aligned. I'm Gina Meyer Vincent, your host and your personal soul shifter, here to help you define and design the future you desire and deserve, where essentially you become exactly what's missing in the world today. And today, my guest has done exactly that. I am so excited to introduce you to Kelly Calkins. Kelly is the founder of Restoring Hope Nutrition, triumphed over a decade-long struggle with not one, but six autoimmune diseases, conquering fatigue and brain fog, among other chronic symptoms. As a board-certified holistic nutritionist, she now empowers other women to reclaim optimal health through personalized guidance and a holistic approach to wellness. So, Kelly, I am delighted to have you with me today. Thank you for jumping on the mic and being able to film with me.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation with you.
Yes, and as you and I both know, we have so many things we can talk about that this may end up being a two-parter because we have so many things to share and things that align and in common, that I love being able to have a guest like you who comes from a different angle and can share your brilliance in another way other than myself, so that people can hear it from someone else instead of from me. And sometimes that's all we need, is a different voice, a different smile, a different way of explaining something. So having one autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's, which is a very funny word, but not a fun time. And having to navigate that myself, because I was like, yes, I don't want a label. That doesn't feel right. We need to figure this out. And had to go through hiring and firing many doctors along the way.
Same, yeah.
I can't fathom what it was like to have six and over a decade. So I'd love for you to share that. And then I know there's other things we want to get into, but let's start there because that was in your bio. And it's just something that I think more and more women are being diagnosed with. Every time I say the word Hashimoto's, people's eyes light up. My sister has that. I have that. And I'm looking around and I come home and I tell my husband, something is wrong.
Yeah.
And I know you have the answers.
Yeah. Yeah. So it definitely was not a fun season of my life. I'll start with that. It really kind of came to a head as I was ending my 29th year. 3 days before I turned 29, I ended up with a hysterectomy. And they couldn't figure out what was going on in my body. So I wasn't diagnosed with anything yet, but I had symptoms since my late teens, and it takes forever for women to get diagnosed. That's part of the problem, right? On average, it takes 10 to 12 years to get diagnosed. So you feel like you're going nuts. And that's what it felt like every time I went
and
to
let's speak about what does that look like and feel like, because I have been there myself.
Yeah.
And I think that it's great that these blood work, etc., we have these quote unquote norms.
Yeah.
It's my belief.
That thing is a whole separate thing. Like blood ranges are like bookends for disease, and it's based on your zip code. It has nothing to do with optimal health at all. So they're telling me my labs are normal. And it just means I wasn't as sick as the sickest person who got tested in that zip code. Not exactly helpful. Fair?
No, and that's where I think as women, we sometimes walk away and are like, we're being like, oh, you're fine. You gained weight, so you're tired.
Yeah.
I had another woman.
I was depressed. Every time they tried to give me antidepressants, and I'm like, well, I'm depressed now because you're not listening. Like, I know my body, something's not right. But even when I was at my sickest, I was never like an incredibly overweight person. I have pictures where I'm clearly overweight. My face is very swollen. My abdomen is very distended. Not a normal body shape at all.
Yeah.
And I'm just depressed.
Yeah.
And you're walking away like, I know I'm not depressed. I'm not crazy. Something is wrong. I don't feel right. I feel it on the inside. Yeah. And then my husband, God bless him, he's a good man. But there were some times where he was like, I don't understand why you feel the way you feel. You have a good life. And I just was like, I know I have a good life, but I
Right.
also feel like a dumpster fire on the inside. Like there's this weird disconnect that happens.
And I think all too often, I love the fact that you brought up the word depression,
Mhm.
because my husband and I were out for a wonderful walk at the beach, which we often do when the weather is not warm enough to be paddleboarding, which it wasn't. So we were walking, and I said, I think we live in a society, and listen, I'm a New Yorker. I move fast. I talk fast. I don't sugarcoat. I'm very direct. But I think we want a quick fix. I think that now, having watched my husband work in the medical field, not in that capacity anymore, thank God, but where he had to move people through the door because of insurance,
Yes.
saying, you only get paid this much, you can't do this, you have to do that, la la la. And that's why he left
Right.
seeing patients full time, because it was no longer about the patient. It was about moving people through, like a what do
A
you
cow.
call that? Exactly. I was like, cows. What do you call that? Like
Yeah,
a
and there's
cattle
there's
farm.
this disconnect because we kind of grow up thinking like doctors are our advocate and we
Right.
trust them and
Yes.
they're going to look out for us, and
Yes.
they are treading water at best.
Yes.
They're doing the best they can in the broken system that they find
Yeah.
themselves in. But if
Yeah.
you don't advocate for yourself, no one's going to advocate for you.
Yeah.
And we have this kind of psychology where like we don't question doctors, we don't argue with doctors. And in my own journey, I share this in my talk, where my specialist, one of my many specialists, like I fired specialists like you go through a pack of Tic Tacs. Like it was ridiculous. But I'm sitting down with him and he goes, listen, this is just the hand you've been dealt. You have to learn to deal with it. And I just looked at him and I said, that is the most unloving thing that you could say. And you would never say that to somebody that you personally care about.
Yeah.
And I told him, I think we're done here. And
Yeah.
my husband was like, you can't fire doctors. I'm like, you can
Yes.
absolutely fire doctors.
Yes. And I won't go into it because my listeners have heard it a million times. And if they haven't, they can read about it on my website, in my background, or in my brand video. But being an advocate for yourself,
Mhm.
if you're healthy enough.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you definitely need somebody. And it
Oh,
doesn't have to be somebody you're married to. It doesn't have to be somebody you're related to. It
yeah.
could just be not just, but it could be a good friend, or it could be somebody you admire, who you
Mhm.
reach your hand out and say, I am not healthy enough. Something is definitely wrong. I know you're good at standing for what's true, what's right, and what's relevant.
Yeah.
Please, can you fight for me, because I am not healthy enough to fight
Yeah.
for myself at the moment.
I fight
And
for my clients all the time. I will literally have conversations with them, giving them the words to say,
yes.
because it's so broken that if you don't say certain things, your practitioner is not even going to hear what you're saying.
Hmm.
So it's unfortunate that it's like that, but you just brought up a great point, like not being able to function well. We were just chatting earlier about I've been looking through old pictures
Yeah.
because I'm putting together a talk, and I'm sitting with my daughter who's 20 now, and we're looking at these pictures of when I really was not doing well, and my face, I have moon face, very
Yeah.
common with
Yeah.
Hashimoto's. My belly is
Well,
very.
moon phase. So explain what that is, because I've had it too. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So moon face is where your whole face just looks very puffy and very round. Everything gets round and swollen. Um, it would be like the equivalent of gaining 20 to 30 pounds, but it's only
Yes.
in your face, which is very fun. Um, and yeah, so we're looking through these pictures, and I'm just like, man, I don't know if I actually want to share these because I don't have a lot of pictures from that season. Like I had told you, when you're dying or trying not to die, you're not thinking, let's take some pictures, right?
Right. And the other thing I think is we want to avoid them, right?
Oh,
People are
sure.
like, oh,
There's pictures where I am
come.
strategically holding my children in front of me
Yeah.
because it blocks my body, but you can see that moon face. You can see my eyes are sunken. My hair looks like straw. And
Yeah.
I'm talking with my daughter, looking at these pictures, and I'm like, I don't know how I was functioning because I remember having brain fog so bad. I literally would have people ask me if I had been drinking.
Wow.
Yeah. And it
Wow.
chips away at your
Okay.
self-esteem. It chips away at your self-confidence.
Yeah.
I started pulling inward because I was embarrassed because I was so painfully aware that I couldn't function.
Yeah.
And we
Wow.
want to hide that because there's this shame piece that nobody talks about
Right.
when you can't function properly.
Mm-hmm.
Because as women, heaven forbid we're a burden, right?
Right.
I mean, we do this to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And then when I was sick in the beginning, my husband had to advocate for me because I didn't want to be a financial burden. And he
Right.
sat me down. He was like, listen, none of this works without you. Like, we have got to fix you so that
Right.
we can have our family in our life. And we
Yeah.
just get it really, really twisted as women. And when we're not functioning well, it
Yeah.
becomes really hard to think clearly.
Magnified. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
magnified, right?
what was muddy.
Yeah.
I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't digesting well. I wasn't absorbing anything. I have pictures that go from me being so bloated and distended to looking literally emaciated
Mm.
because people, this is like a thing for me. People think skinny is healthy.
Yeah. Not always.
Not always.
Right.
No. Like when I was at my most emaciated, I think I got down to like 110 pounds.
Mm.
And I
How
looked
tall are you? So tell us how.
5'2". So
Mhm.
I'm a very athletic girl. I usually hang out around like 118.
Yeah.
Um, when I was pregnant, I got up to 140. Also, when I was sick, I got up to 140.
Yeah.
When I got emaciated and got to the point where I couldn't absorb and digest well, I dropped
Mhm.
down to like 110. Size 0 was loose on me. And
Mm.
people would come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, you look amazing. What are you doing? And I was like, dying.
Right. Yeah.
But
And
deep,
liver failure will also,
right?
liver failure will also make you lose muscle.
Oh, for
Mark
sure.
is in
Well,
liver
even when
failure.
you don't digest and absorb, you don't
Yeah.
have protein in your body. Your body still needs protein to function, so it cannibalizes your muscles.
Mm-hmm.
It liberates the protein from your muscles, which is what was happening for me. I was getting very swollen, very puffy. I was fatigued. I had no lean muscle mass anymore. My hair was falling out. I had to strategically comb my hair because you could see scalp. Like it was really
Mm.
bad at its worst.
Yeah.
And women and balding, it's not a good look. Like
No.
we pride ourselves on our hair,
Fair.
right? It's a sign of feminine beauty and womanhood. And when
Mm-hmm.
you lose that and nothing you do works,
Yeah.
it's a rough place to be.
Yeah. No, I love all of what you said, and I agree. I mean, I'm very fortunate with the Hashimoto's. I didn't feel like I had the brain fog. I didn't have
Yeah.
but I did have swollen face. I also had joints that
Oh
were
yeah. I had
falling
a
apart
fever every
after.
day. Every
Yeah.
day. My temperature at night would go up to 103. They had no idea
Wow.
why. And it was
Mm,
the immune attack.
right.
I felt like my bones and joints were twisting in my body. It was awful. And then
Yeah.
I was depressed.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also times when our hormones change, I
Mhm.
think oftentimes people are labeled as depressed because,
Oh, for sure.
when for me, when my hormones changed in uh, definite lack of testosterone, I was exhausted.
Yep.
And like by 3 o'clock, I needed a nap. And I'm a very, very high energy person.
Yeah.
And my
And that's
whole
usually
family,
adrenals, actually. When
yeah,
your energy tanks like that, it's adrenals that take a hit, but it
yep,
can come from hormone imbalance. And
absolutely. It's
we know
all
that they don't apply it when we show up at the doctor's office and say, I feel like something's off. Well, you look fine, your labs are fine, so here's a pill to make you happy.
right. And that's where I think that I'd love for you to get into, like, how did you find your way in this broken system? Because it truly is, when you're in it, it's very, very eye-opening. My husband
Oh,
is a family doctor, becoming the patient, a double organ transplantee. I mean, he was so ill.
yeah.
Talk about brain fog. The brain was definitely not function when functioning properly when you're living
Too
solely
much
on
inflammation.
dialysis.
Oh yeah, too much inflammation. It will
Yeah.
totally shut down your brain. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so he, once he came out of it, he realized, okay, wow, that was really horrific. And
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not
'cause you're in
saying,
survival mode, right? So you're not
right.
recognizing how dire it is because you're just trying to get through the day or the hour or the
Yeah.
month, right?
Yes, exactly. And I think the body really does protect itself
It does.
in, like, hey, I can't take on that right now. So I'm going to just focus on the little bit that I'm doing to survive. And the other parts will have to wait. And I
Right.
think oftentimes maybe other people don't understand that. I just knew by looking at him and listening to him
Yeah.
that he was not functioning properly and that I had to take what he said and just, do what I needed to do. If that was curse, go in the bathroom, say a few choice words,
Yeah.
give him the middle finger when he can't see me because
Yeah.
he was just
Keep
the
your
thing,
sanity. Yeah.
right.
It's hard.
He was ugly. The words were ugly. He was in liver failure, kidney failure. That's a lot of rage inside.
Well,
And
those emotions live in the liver. Liver
yes,
holds all the anger, frustration,
yep,
impatience, complaining. So, like when I'm out and about and I'm interacting with people, I'm like, "Ooh, there's a burdened liver."
yes. And you
Then
can
you
see
see
it.
it, you understand it. Yeah.
Right. And I knew enough, not like your training, but my training from yoga and nutrition and etc. through yoga teacher training and mindset work,
Mhm.
that this wasn't, who I married, that
Right.
hopefully he would get the help he needed. And he did. But tell us about your journey and what did that look like and where did it lead you?
Yeah. So my journey is a perfect example of the survival paradox. So we've talked about how our bodies are intelligently designed. They want to push through because your body's designed to survive. And then the downside to that is your body will push through and push through and push through until it can't, and then everything
Yeah.
breaks. So
Yeah.
in my journey, the first thing I was diagnosed with was Hashimoto's. And they figured out I had autoimmune because at 29, it was 3 days before I turned 30. They did the hysterectomy. I didn't heal right. I bled internally for 8 weeks before they figured out that whole crap show, did another surgery, had another complication, and so on and so on. I wasn't healing properly. So then they looked for autoimmune. So they
Yeah.
came up with Hashimoto's. They told me in a voicemail. So
Oh,
that was lovely. But looking back, I have celiac disease. So my whole life I had celiac disease.
mhm.
Hashi and celiac go hand in hand together.
Yeah,
And
my sister has celiacs. I have Hashimoto's. Yep.
yep. So I got diagnosed with Hashi within 3 months, celiac within 6 months, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis,
Well,
fibromyalgia, plaque psoriasis. Like it was just awful,
now, are
awful.
you married at this point? Are you a mom at this point?
So
Yeah.
for me, the celiac really is evident my whole life. So like as a kid, I could maybe poop once a week. I
Yeah.
graduated high school. I was 95 pounds. Everyone thought it was so cute. I was so little. I was malnourished,
Yeah.
right? So you've got all this malnourishment. Then I have kids. Kids is a perfect trigger for autoimmune because of the hormone changes that happen.
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
already had celiac undetected, had kids, Hashimoto's like came with a vengeance. And then
Mhm.
because I had all the digestive issues from celiac, once you have one autoimmune, you are
Right.
significantly more likely to have more. So in my case, it like pulled the ripcord and everything
Mhm.
just went. So I got to the point where I was bedridden. I had sores, like plaque psoriasis sores, head to
Mm.
toe, like nickel size, quarter size. Um, I just, I couldn't even get out of bed. Like I had to take FMLA leave from my job. It was awful. So I had that interaction with a specialist, fired him. And then I was an IT engineer. I thought there has got to be a reason all this is happening. Like they keep telling me it's this, it's this, it's this, but no one's telling me why it's happening. So I
Right.
took my little OCD analytical brain and I started reading medical journals and connecting dots. And I turned from Western to Eastern. And I remember sitting on my couch. I had lost vision in my right eye. It looked like everything was underwater. My face drooped. It looked like I had a stroke.
Yeah.
I'm like, what can make your eye lose vision. And the
Yeah.
doctor had told me it was stress. I'm like, for real, bro? Like, come on. Like
And
everything,
did you say it was the left side of your face?
the right side, the right
Right.
for my body, the right side is my weaker side in
Mhm.
terms of the autoimmune. Everything autoimmune hits my right side harder. Um, so I started looking at what can cause this, and of course, like all the normal articles are like stress, lack of sleep. I'm like blah blah blah. So I went to the scholarly articles,
Yeah.
and they started talking about inflammation, and I was like, well,
Right.
snap, how do you get inflammation in your body? And I
Mhm.
started looking at stress and mindset and internal dialogue, and I'm thinking, well, I don't talk to myself very nice, because like
Mhm.
when you don't feel well, you're awful to yourself, right? Because you
Right.
almost want to like bully yourself to be better, but that doesn't work. And then I started noticing there was a food connection. And I was
Mhm.
like, well, holy cow.
Yeah.
Maybe what I'm eating, this beautiful standard American diet, is killing me, because I'm Italian. So, like, pasta and bread are life, but I had celiac. So, my whole life, I've been just destroying my body, and I had no idea. So, in my case, it really was the perfect storm. And when that pin got pulled,
Yeah.
it was devastation. So,
Yeah.
it took me, oh my gosh, probably close to a decade, if not just over a decade, to climb out of that hole.
Yeah.
So for me, it looked like changing the way I ate, to just really focus on whole foods. That's where I started. I was like, I'm not
Mhm.
going to eat processed. I'm just going to eat meat, vegetables, fruit, nuts, and seeds. And
Yeah.
I got a lot better, but I didn't get all the way better. So then I
Mhm.
learned, oh, I could do testing and I could figure out exactly what works for my body. Western doctors don't do these tests. I got the testing. I saw I had like 4 dozen food reactions. I was reacting to spinach, kale, blueberries, onion, garlic, celery,
Mm.
which is like 99% water. But it that showed me that my gut was just trashed. It was
Yeah.
so permeable, right? It was just ripped apart. So I started healing the mucosal lining. I got almost all the foods back. Really, the only things I avoid now is gluten, dairy, and soy.
Mhm.
And as my gut healed, my hair came back, my
Yeah.
eyebrows came back, my thyroid started functioning better. I started
Mhm.
sleeping and actually waking up rested. I used to wake up every single morning and feel like this is a sick joke. I'm just now getting my deepest sleep and it's time to get up. And
Right.
starting your day from a deficit, that's
It's
brutal. It's
right.
awful.
Especially when people rely on you and you're a go-getter,
Yeah,
right?
my husband's working,
You're
I'm on FMLA, my kids are
right.
little. So I'm like mom of the year laying on the couch playing Disney movie after Disney movie. And I'm just like, watch TV while mommy sleeps. And I slept
Yeah.
all day and I was still exhausted. And I would try to explain it to my friends using
Mm.
spoons. Have you heard the spoons theory? Like
No.
everything you do costs spoons, and every day you only have a set number of spoons. So waking
Mm.
up costs spoons, brushing
Yeah.
your teeth costs spoons, feeding yourself, getting dressed.
Yeah.
And if you use all your spoons before lunchtime, they're just gone. You don't get
Right.
spoons. So like
Mhm.
friends would be like, "Oh, we're going out. Come out to dinner with us." If I borrowed spoons from the next day because I ran out of spoons that day,
Right.
I'd be
Mhm.
down for a week.
Mhm.
I was constantly operating from this deficit because my body just couldn't catch up because it couldn't function. And it
Yeah.
was just, I look back at those pictures like this morning and I was just like, I honestly don't know how I pushed through. It's
Mhm.
just like it's a testament to how God made women, but it really works against us sometimes.
Right. And that's where I'm so glad you brought that up. I was somewhere yesterday where I've been watching a beautiful woman younger than I am. I'm 55. I would say she might even be a decade younger than I.
Mhm.
And I've been watching her over the past few months. We meet once a month, once a week, and
Mhm.
just declining. And I said to my husband, I've told her more than once, I'd love to help you because I see very easily things just from brief, short conversations.
Me
I
too.
can
I've got
see many.
discernment. The gift I was just given from
Right.
God. So but you can't
Yeah.
say the right thing to the wrong ear, Gina. That's what's hard,
Right,
right?
right. And so with this discernment, I see things like you do, and different than you, but still can see where the disconnects are. And I said to my husband last night, it just breaks my heart because I see, or I know from personal experience and from lots of reading and educating myself and having really deep conversations with a healer back on the East Coast who licensed me in yoga teacher training. I call him Jesus, my Jesus on earth. How the body works, and that mindset piece you were talking about plays in so strongly. And then the
Oh, for
teachings
sure.
of like Louise Hay, who I
Mhm.
love, she's since left this beautiful world.
Yeah.
But as women, oftentimes giving and giving and giving and being that overachiever.
Mhm. We think
But
it's like love, but it's not love. It's self-abuse.
oh, totally, because it's constant outpour,
Yeah.
but no receiving. And when you have this mismatch and this imbalance, coming back to my yoga teacher training, an imbalance in our life shows up then in the body or vice versa, and shows up in our spiritual life, our health,
Yeah.
so I'm watching this overachiever who's driven and constantly over delivering in her career, in her marriage, to her children, and yet at the same time constantly yawning. And I could just see the fatigue in her face. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, God, you're like 45, you're young. Like I know what kinds of things can start helping you very, very quickly. I
Oh,
mean,
sure. Yeah.
minor, just minor changes
Oh, that's
that
the
can
great thing
then,
about the body. It wants homeostasis. It wants balance.
yeah,
So we always think like, oh, it's going to be these drastic, awful changes.
right.
Little things are big ripples in the body.
Yes. And those ripples, I love that you used that word because I was filming yesterday and we were talking about, or I was speaking about ripples. We can have a joint show. Did you know that? So in your spare time, you and I are going to be filming once a week. So add that to your calendar. No stress,
Yeah.
no pain. But those ripples
Mhm.
then lead us to be able to, like you were talking about, what are we saying in the voice in our head? What are we listening to? Would we say, oftentimes I ask my clients now, would you say that to your beautiful daughter? Absolutely
Oh,
not.
for
And I
sure.
know that. I
Great
know that.
practice, right?
Then why would you say that to yourself? Because
Yeah.
even though it's only being in the voice in your head, your daughter sees it on you.
Yes.
When you're
Oh,
looking
what
in
we
the mirror,
model to kids is just awful. Like, true story. I was walking down the hall when my daughter was very little. My daughter still is in therapy because she has trauma from this season because I wasn't hiding it as well as I thought I was hiding it.
yeah.
So,
Well, you can't
and
when you're ill.
just
Yeah.
so I was walking down the hall. She's playing with her baby doll. Okay, this is just how much I love you because I'm going to share this publicly, and I don't share this publicly.
Yeah, no, and this is being transparent and
Oh, for
vulnerable
sure.
and opening to,
Baby doll. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
she shakes it on the bed and she goes, I can't do this. I'm losing my freaking mind. And I was just like, oh, I am a failure as a mother. I was like, but it really made me think like, oh my gosh, what am I modeling? And it's that same like outward perspective. Like if I saw her doing what I'm doing, I would
Yeah.
be like, baby girl, you have got to save yourself and love yourself.
Right,
Or from
right.
an empty cup. But then when it's us, we're like, oh, I'm heroic. I can do it. I'll suck it up. I'll dig deep. And it's just abuse.
Well, and I think that, and I'm laughing with you, Kelly, not at you. Number one, thank you for being so transparent. That's
Oh,
what this
it's
show
such a low
is.
moment as a mom when you see your daughter like literally throwing their baby doll on the bed,
Yeah.
like saying the words that you say. It was awful.
Yeah. But I think it also allows others to know they're not alone and
Yes.
that this
We're
does
all
happen.
human.
Yeah, and that
And when
this
you're
is
not
a
functioning,
sign.
it sucks and it's
Yeah,
hard.
yeah, this is a sign that this is where we've become imbalanced.
Correct.
And I know, when Mark was sick, I was exhausted. I wasn't sleeping. I believe that I had Hashimoto's long before diagnosed. I
Oh, yeah.
was the
You're
child,
10 years.
yeah, I was the child who always had blue fingertips,
Mhm.
blue toenails, not from nail polish, just because I was,
Circulation. We
yeah,
don't need to be warm. We can always be
yeah.
freezing. That's what sweaters are for.
Right. I had blue lips. That was
Mhm.
part of the reason why I started wearing red lipstick, because
Mm,
a clear gloss only made the blue look more sparkly,
yeah.
and my grandmother had blue lips, cold hands. I mean, when I say cold, I mean embarrassing. Like if I were
Oh,
to shake
my
her
daughter
hand,
can. Yeah,
yeah,
no, I get it. That was me too. And then
yeah,
when I started figuring this stuff out, my mom, who's since passed, I told her, and she was like, "Oh, Kelly, this is just what happens in our family." And I told her, I'm like, just because it's what's normal doesn't mean it's healthy, right?
right.
And all it really told me was that everybody in my maternal line's got autoimmune.
Well, and when you do, if you're able, right? Our daughter's adopted, so we don't have medical records from
Yeah.
her family. But if you have, and you can look back, you often do see it, the chains. And then especially if the diet remains the same, right?
Yeah.
Because mom's cooking, my mother shared her recipes with me
Oh,
because
for
I
sure.
was learning how to cook, and I knew the things that I
Familial.
liked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there are so many things, and I think that is also generational.
Oh, for
Even
sure.
like the doctors speaking to you saying, hey, this is the hand you've been dealt, or the cards you've been dealt, uh, you know here, get this prescription, that prescription, this study, da 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 da. But
Yeah.
I think it is really up to us to the thing. I'm in the middle of writing my book. I don't even know if you and I have spoken about that. I
Mhm.
haven't publicly announced it very much, but will be. And it's all about making decisions that align for us. And like you're speaking, we have to get to a point where we decide, is it okay to be constantly exhausted or
Right.
even tired? Like for
Yeah.
me, just tired is not like that
You
is
don't
not
have to
acceptable.
settle, right? Just because
Right.
everyone, like my daughter would be like, "Mom, you look so much better than other moms." At my sickest, when
Yeah.
I was like 110 pounds, and I'm like, "Right, but they're healthy, and I'm like dodging the grave right now." Like,
Right.
you have to know your body and don't settle. Be
No.
willing to advocate, fight for health.
Hmm.
Just because it's normal doesn't mean it's right.
Well, and just because we see so many other, so 55-year-olds
Mhm.
that look a certain way or act a certain way. I had a woman who is older than me say, well, that's just what happens when you become a certain age,
I
Gina. Like,
know we've told her
and
before.
I looked at her and
Dysfunction.
I was like,
It's
yeah,
not normal. It's dysfunction.
and I said to her, I know we don't know each other very well, but I'm a high energy person. So I cannot just settle for like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, it's okay to take a nap. Yes, I do believe that it's okay to take a nap as
Oh, me
needed.
too. I do.
But
I love an afternoon nap. It's like a
yeah,
treat, but it
but
should not be survival. It should not be
correct.
function. Totally different. Yeah, my
Right.
mom used to say, "Oh, Kelly, wait till you get to be that age. You'll have heartburn and acid reflux too." And I was like, "Nope, that's a delayed food sensitivity. I will not have that because I know how to eat for my body." So you watch, we could almost make a drinking game out of the stuff we see on commercials and all the side effects. And I'm just like, people want that fast fix and that pill, and then they
Yeah.
disconnect all the other problems that come from that fast fix pill.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And yeah, it's just very, very fascinating and interesting. And I know that you help people now,
Yes.
and have found, settling. I wrote myself two words
Yeah.
in caps: worthy and settling. I
Oh,
think that
yeah.
there's,
Sure. Women have worth issues,
yeah.
especially when we don't feel well, because
Mhm.
it's that burden piece, right? we don't feel like we're worth investing in. We don't feel like we're worth prioritizing in. We want to redeem the fact that we're not functioning well by putting everybody else first, and it just compounds the problem.
Yeah. And I think if you look back, because I've done a lot of research because I speak on this,
Mhm.
I consider it a centuries old pandemic.
Oh,
And
for
it
sure.
happens not only to men, but also to women, not only to women, but also to men.
Mhm.
And I think that overachievers who are constantly giving outward, like we talked about earlier, that imbalance of being able to receive, that becomes the full force sign that there is an imbalance, and it's most likely that worthiness factor. And one time I asked a client, what will it take? What do you need to feel worthy? And her answer was immediate. I thought it would take, hey, come back, we'll
Yeah.
revisit this. And she said, yeah, no, I know. I feel like I need permission. And so today I'd like to give permission
Yeah.
from me to you. But the thing is, the homework is you have to give the permission to yourself
Yeah.
and find out, where did it stem from. I think when we can get back to where did this come from?
Mhm.
Where was I taught this? Or how did I learn this? Or where did I pick it up? And I mean, you can see it in
Inherited,
society.
right? We have
Right.
inherited belief systems.
Yes.
So
And
we can be born with a distorted lens and not even realize we're looking through a distorted lens because we don't know any different.
right. And then we put these veils on from society to look a certain way, like your
Yeah.
daughter saying, oh, but mom, you look so much better than these other women who are overweight. And
Yeah.
your
And I'm
answer,
thinking,
right?
look at them though. They're like happy and laughing. And
Thriving.
so many pictures where I have a smile on my face, but you can see I have like a dead face with like a smile. It's
Yeah.
just the comment my daughter made this morning is, Mom, I can see in that picture how much you love us and how much you're struggling just to be there. And I was
Yeah.
like, oof,
Yeah.
rough, right?
Yeah. It is rough. And I think, and, you know, having had two very, very young kids watch Mark, nearly die in kidney and liver failure,
It's
it's something I,
traumatizing.
yeah, it's something I can't take away from them or remove or erase.
Right.
But I have to go on and believe, because I like using my 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 egg timer, my glass hourglass that's 60 seconds, to figure out another way of seeing it. And the blessing is that your daughter can see that and
Oh,
can
yeah.
recognize it. And
Reframing is powerful, right?
right.
It allows us to get back that control and empower ourselves. We
Yeah.
don't have to be stuck with one version of something.
Hmm.
There's so many different ways to look at something.
Yeah. And I think that because she can already see that, and I think you said she's only 20, what a great gift. Because I do believe, sure, would I have loved for my kids to have this simple, easy, uh, uh, you know, carefree childhood? Absolutely. But
Yeah.
at the same time, that's not what they live through.
You know what? In
But
the
it
same
changes.
token, I am so glad my kids have that experience and that grit
Hmm.
because it's changed how they look at things, not in
Yeah.
a bad way, in a good way. Like they have a different kind of resilience. And I
Mhm.
see the difference between them and their friends.
Yes.
Things that freak their friends out, my kids are mm, like that doesn't, that's not actually a big thing. Like if
Yeah.
you do this, you could do this, you're fine.
Mhm.
So I kind of feel like while I wish, like you said, it could have been different, I'm glad that what happened happened because I see how God used it and how
Mhm.
He strengthened them.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also, like you were saying, the coping skills
Yeah, the grit.
and
So many
the,
kids don't have grit anymore.
yeah. And then, well, because we try, right, to
Yeah,
protect them, or we aim,
yeah,
but also the love for life and the appreciation for health,
yeah,
like your daughter seeing the truth in those photos. And I think that it also helps them see what truly matters in life, striving for all these goals, etc., is wonderful. But I think when we're not living a life on purpose, purposefully, using our gifts. I mean, so that was one thing I did want to ask you earlier. You had mentioned, give me a minute, I forgot your title. You were an IT engineer, which is so different than what you do now. I
Yes.
mean, similar and different, right? We can see the
The analytical
similarities.
piece makes me great at my job, but
Right.
also I get to drop down from my head to my heart a lot in what I do now, which is
Yeah.
very rewarding.
When you look back, do you feel like you were in alignment in that career, or is it really this part that you're the healer and that you were called to this?
That's a great question. So the reason I liked my job was because I got to figure things out and help people.
Right.
IT was the wrong vehicle. And as I had this health crisis, I realized that that job was killing me.
Yeah.
Like it was speeding up my demise. I would get stomach aches on a Sunday night, dreading going in on a Monday. And I thought I was close to retirement. I was there 17 and a half years.
Wow.
Oh, long, like this was a full career retirement pension. And I needed 11 more years to get to my 82 points where I could retire with all the benefits. And I looked at my husband and I said, I'll be dead.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make it 11 more years. So I walked away from that and I went back to school, pursued my board certification, started this practice, and started teaching people to do what I learned so they could
Yeah.
get their health back. But the first week of that, bless you, was very, very messy. Like every morning at breakfast, I would just cry at the table because
Yeah.
the fear was so real because
Yeah.
change is terrifying. I left security
Yeah.
for a dream. And my son looked at me and he said, are you crying again? And I was like, I am. And he goes, do you think that you mistook what God was saying? And I said, no. And he goes, then stop crying. And I was like, what's wrong with my children? So clearly they also have discernment. Like God does not out in their house. But they like totally kicked me in my freaking butt. And I was like, all right, Calkins, like pull your crap together and we're doing this. So
And how old was he at the time?
like 8, like you can't make this stuff up.
Out of
But
the mouth of babes.
yes.
Yes.
So now I'm in my education. I'm learning. My mom gets diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, God, like your timing is amazing because everything I was learning, I could apply to my mom. It changed
Mm.
her quality of life. It changed her quantity of life. She was given 3 to 6 months. She ended up dying with pancreatic cancer, not from
Mm.
pancreatic cancer. That's a whole separate thing. Um, but I got to this place where I came alive in a way that I had never come alive.
Yeah.
Like just even today, we're looking at those pictures. It was a little bit solemn. And then I shift gears because I know I'm going to talk with you and I am singing and I am dancing and I'm goofing off. And my daughter's cracking up. She's like, you're a totally different person now.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I'm who God created me to be now. Instead
Right.
of broken, distorted, muted version that was
Right.
just trying to survive.
Yeah.
So this is what God created me to do. Like
Mhm.
we justify, right? Like we want to fit in with society. We want to
Right.
have the normal path. There is like, even as a kid, I nursed a kitten back to health that had been run over. Like I've always been a healer,
Yeah.
but we don't really normalize that. It's getting better now,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's more
Yeah.
mainstream. But I use nutrition to heal. I use neuro-linguistic programming for the mind piece. I do emotion and body imbalance release because what you feel will poison you as much as what you think and what you eat. Like
Mhm.
we're mental, physical, and emotional. You have
Right.
to support the whole self. So
Yeah.
I was able to transition from like a version of what I was supposed to do, helping and solving,
Yeah.
to really what I'm supposed to be doing is helping people get healthy enough to live the life they were created to live. And I just feel lucky doesn't even describe what it
Mm-hmm.
feels like to be able to step out of the box, the corporate box,
Yeah.
and not only start your own business, follow your dream, but make that kind of impact and change people's lives like that. It's very humbling.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what Exquisitely Aligned is all about. I think when we feel and see the signs that our body is breaking down,
Mhm.
that our mindset is not healthy, we're hearing ugly things, or we feel a disconnect when we look in the mirror and we
Yeah.
see our reflection, we no longer recognize who is this woman or who is this man.
Yeah.
Those are signs that we really need to take a step back, in my opinion, slow down, and
Mhm.
just start reevaluating. I'm
Yeah.
not into reinventing. That is a
Mhm.
word that I write and speak on all the time. For me, that's like wearing a white lab coat, going down a basement into a bunker and, starting to invent something from scratch.
Yeah, you just
We
have to reiterate,
exist.
right? Reiterate, refine,
Yeah,
realign. That's what it's
exactly.
about. Just little adjustments so that you can come back into alignment.
Yeah. And oftentimes, if we're not living or fulfilling our life's purpose using the gifts that only we have, I like to
Mhm.
tell them, my kids, you're as unique as your fingerprint.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic comes in. And I love the fact that you brought up the fact that being a healer back then, because I know you're younger than I am, but you're not 20 like your daughter,
Yeah.
back then was not.
At the end of this month, and I have no qualms about age because when you almost die and you get to live, you
Yes.
celebrate every single trip around the sun, which we all should.
Right. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think that, those times is when we have to take a step and, go in, reevaluate, realign, like you said. I think that if you want to speed it up, that's what I'm here for.
Yep.
I see the disconnects, and as a New Yorker, I hate seeing somebody stuck in the mud.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
you saying, about a decade or so. For me, it was about 4 years of nuttiness, and
Mhm.
I just was done,
Yeah.
and finished my second joint replacement.
Oh,
Inflammation went down immediately once that joint was repaired.
yeah.
And so when I do see a woman or a
Mhm.
man, usually it's a woman because I hang
Usually
out.
it is a woman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like all of it affects women so much more because men are great at self care and
Hmm.
having that time and putting things
Most
in
of the time. Yeah. Yeah.
usually.
And
Women, we struggle with that, right? We do the
right.
hacks, we do the plates, we do all the things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just think that when I see somebody who's in that mode where they're being shown signs from
Mhm.
above, from God, the universe,
Yeah.
this energy, this force.
Yeah.
So we spoke about several of them, inflammation, not digesting. I like to say life is happening to them, not for them.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
you
Uh,
know,
brain fog is a huge one. Not
brain
sleeping
fog,
at night is a huge one.
correct.
Digestive issues, bloating, cramping. People
Mhm.
think gas is normal. You should not be farting. If you're farting, it's because your stomach is struggling to digest something, or
Exactly.
bacteria in your gut are thriving and releasing toxins, not the right kind of bacteria, the bad bacteria.
Yeah.
These things that we think are normal. Like we used to grow up singing. Do you remember that dumb song like "Beans, Beans, the Magical Fruit"?
Right. Right.
Like we thought we normalized it, but it's
Right.
actually a sign of distress.
Yes. Yeah. And I just think if you can stop, slow down, find somebody like Kelly or myself or both of us in conjunction, and
Yeah.
just really, life is too short. Oftentimes people come to me after something uneasy happens, a life change, a divorce, a breakup of a long-term relationship. Maybe they weren't married, a child struggling with a health
Those
issue or
over makeup
school.
calls, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those things propel us to all of a sudden not want to settle for that four-letter F word,
Yep.
fine, at
Yep.
describing our life. And I think a lot of overachievers, like
Mhm.
this one person I'm thinking of, is constantly over delivering in her career, in her family, in her marriage, in her extended family and friends, yet like we were speaking about, not receiving and not giving enough and receiving from even herself.
Right.
And that's where we have these disconnects. And I think you hit on, about having discernment, being a healer as a young age, even with the kitten,
Yeah.
and then going into what kind of life maybe took. I'm going to put words in your mouth now, but maybe a direction that on paper
A
looked.
respectable career.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
That's what it
Where
was, right?
right, where you could earn the money. I mean, listen, I would like my kids to one day move out, be able to feed themselves, have health insurance, and buy their own car, house, have their
That's
dog
the
and cat.
dream.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I always reiterate to them, I
Yeah.
want you to be making money and lots of money because it's an exchange. It allows
Oh,
you
yeah.
to travel and do the things you want to do,
Yeah,
to have
and money
health
just amplifies who you already are, right? It's like a
care.
lubricant. It just makes things easier. Money
Right,
doesn't
right.
change you, it
No,
amplifies you.
it gives you choices.
Yes,
And then what
100%.
you do with those choices is up to you. But at the same time, although money is important, I'd like you to be doing your life's purpose,
Yeah, or
and
something
really
soul crushing,
thrive.
right? Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get one crack at this. Don't settle, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I tell my kids all the time, like my daughter, I'm like, you are the only you that there is.
Right.
And God made you the way He made you for a reason and for a purpose.
Absolutely.
So try all the things, do all the things, figure out
Yeah.
what you gravitate towards, and then find a way to monetize that and
Mhm.
build a life on that. So you can actually be serving the world, leaving it better, and making a living.
Yeah. And I think that you don't have to work so hard to find it. It just naturally happens.
Yeah,
If
you just
you're,
have to put
you know,
yourself out there, right? You got to get
right.
out of your own way and just try things. Be open.
Yeah. And I think recognize that your gifts are so important. And,
Oh, for sure.
you can never be greater than how you choose to see yourself. And
That's true.
really taking a minute to look in the mirror and think about, how do you see yourself? What am I seeing that I love?
Yeah.
And go that way. I think we put our children through the school systems where we have to learn things that are set items
Yeah.
and focus on the things they're not good at and try to make them better at it versus taking the things they're really good at and let them go even deeper. My
Find
daughter's
your
a great
friend to run with
artist.
it, right?
Yeah, run
Yeah.
with it. She's great with colors. She's great with
Mhm.
how do you call that? Perspectives, drawing
Yeah.
perspectives.
Yeah.
She definitely could draw a face and an eye like at a young age. These are hard things to,
Right.
put a pen to paper and
Yeah.
do. And
Yeah.
so, but those things are what she is here to do. So,
Yeah, and I think our school system shuts that part of us down. Like, I used
mhm,
to always tell my kids, if something happened and they weren't like the top of the class, it didn't actually bother me. And I would show
right.
them there's an old cartoon where it's like a monkey climbing a tree and then a goldfish in a bowl, right? Like, you can't fail the fish for being a fish and not being able to climb the tree. But we
Right.
put everybody in the same peg hole in
Right.
school. And man, that would be a boring world. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want sameness. I think sameness is a disease. I want everybody to just be them, right? Like, that's what makes the world amazing.
You're speaking to the choir. So, yeah. Yesterday on the episode that will be live after this one, we had filmed in advance. I shared that I started making my own clothing in high school because I never wanted to look the same as the other students, as my friends. I loved my friends to death, but
Yeah.
I always knew that I wasn't the same as them
Yeah.
and
And that's
didn't,
not a bad thing. That's actually a great thing.
yeah. It was, but maybe not for my parents. It was in the sense of like, oh my goodness, you have to take me to the store. I found something, like
Yeah.
right now. Yes, no, no, we're eating dinner now. But I was a little
Yeah. My daughter's
impatient.
a firecracker like me. And I've always said, raising her was like, oof, I had my work cut out for me, but she's a force in nature. Like I could not be more
Mhm.
proud of the woman she grew to be. I am so thankful that I let it be hard so that I didn't dilute who she is supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing we should share, because we hit on it before and I didn't get to say, one of the things we learned in yoga years ago when I was teaching is that you and I both had shared our kids had to watch Mark being ill, and then more recently me being ill, your kids when they were young, you being ill,
Yeah.
and that it's something we wouldn't change. It was not fun, and it's still not fun to share on this
Right.
show, to give a voice and be that honest about it, but it's the truth. And in yoga, we always teach that, each person has their own journey. And if we keep trying to protect
Right.
in a way that goes beyond what is healthy, that
Mhm.
person can't have those bumps and bruises and scrapes that are life changing, that help them go in a certain direction, that help them, like we said, your daughter noticing, oh, hey, mom, I can see how much you love us in this photo, but how much you were really not able to
Struggling
be,
to be there. Yeah.
thriving,
Yeah.
that you were running on empty and for so long. So, um, at any rate, I see the clock and I know I need to let you get going, but I know you have a marvelous, generous offer. And I love for you to share that. Just for everyone listening, love to let you know that, as always, this information is in the show notes, so you do not need to pull over the car. You can find it at the end in the show notes, and click the link and contact Kelly. But go ahead.
Yeah. So my heart is I'm a teacher, I'm an empowerer, I'm a giver. One of the things that was just a foundational turning point for me was sleep. And I see it all the time in my practice. When we're not functioning well and we're not sleeping well, our body can't repair and restore, and then it compounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I've put together a resource that I would just like to give as a free download for your listeners and viewers so that they can have that resource and they can look at not only what happens at sleep, like metabolism, insulin resistance, hormone
Mm-hmm.
regulation, hunger regulation, like really big things,
Yeah.
um, but what to do about it and how to start shifting things so that you can start sleeping better. Because
Mm.
just that piece alone
Yeah.
can start moving the needle. So I've
Absolutely.
given you the link for that. But then also, I fully recognize, like what you said, that sometimes it's just really hard to navigate on your own and advocate for yourself, especially when you don't feel well. And
Yeah.
that's part of why I've created this online group coaching community. We are wired for community, and there is healing power in community. So I have a special promo code that I've sent you that if you want to try coaching, it's 25% off your first month. And you can just get that guidance and support, because one of the most frustrating things I found in my journey and other women's journey is that there's a ton of conflicting information out there
Yeah.
and wrong information out there. And it's kind of by design, because there's a lot of money in sickness, if we're being honest, fair.
Yeah.
So I just help women kind of cut through the noise and see what is real and what is not real when it comes to physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
Mm-hmm. Because we never want you, Kelly and I both. I know I can speak for you here. We never want you to be in that place where you have to live another day and look in the mirror and feel a disconnect or not recognize yourself. And I'm not just talking about weight gain, the moon face, things like that,
Yeah.
but just that inner, I don't feel well. And
Yeah.
someone else saying, well, you look fine, so
Right.
you must be fine. I mean, we do want to believe that everything is peachy keen and that our loved ones are good, safe, healthy, etc. But the truth is, when someone's saying, "Hey, I do not feel well," especially when it's a woman,
Yeah.
I think we need to stop and listen. So thank you for sharing everything so beautifully today and such generous offer. I do have the opening to possibilities deck here. I've
Yeah.
shuffled them through, and I shuffled them a little more as you were making the offer. So I'm just going to thumb through, and if you can tell me when to stop and then tell me which card it is, because I can't see the front. So when you're ready, hang on, because they're falling. That would not be a
I'm
good thing.
so
Okay.
excited for this part.
Whenever you're ready, Kelly.
I am going to go for, oh, you just passed it. Go back that way.
Yep.
More,
Yep.
more. One more.
Yep.
That one. The pink flower.
Perfect. Of course, this is the one. We started talking about you have discernment. It's enlightenment.
I love that.
Enlightenment brings you a new way of seeing and serving the world, which is exactly what we've been talking about. I did charge these every single deck with the ability for it to come the right card for the person at the time. There's 3 questions you can answer, 1, 2, or all 3. Okay. What does enlightenment mean to you? Do you seek enlightenment? I know the answer to that. How do you experience it in your life?
So to me, enlightenment is wisdom. It's being more aligned and connected to, for me, it's God. For some people, it's higher power or universe. I believe that truly crown chakra, right? That's where we get enlightenment from, that connection and being in alignment. How do I believe in continuing to seek alignment daily, most of the day, like always? I start my morning in stillness. I have a prayer that I read every single day out loud, because our words have power, where I'm thanking God for growing the capacity of my soul daily, so that life can flow through me and I can be a blessing to others. In my coaching sessions, when I'm going to do an emotion release or a body release, I thank God for these tools, and I ask God to help me see what he wants me to see so I can release what he wants me to. Like, I joke all the time, and my friend Ruth jokes all the time, like, we just work here, right? Like, we're just the hands. We're a vessel, right? I don't want it to be like, oh, Kelly's so great. It's me and my alignment that, and what moves through me. And then what was the last question? It was,
how do you experience it in your life?
Oh my goodness, in all the ways, in stillness, in nature, in laughter, in music, and just goofing off. We goof so dancey, like dance goofy in our house. Like, God is in all those moments for us. And I'm a person who needs the stillness, but I also need like the vibrant living. I'm a mix like that. And I believe enlightenment is anywhere you look. You have to just look, and it's there.
Yeah, I think when we open to those, like the name of the deck of cards, opening to our possibilities, right?
Yes.
When we open, and yeah, it's sometimes hard when we're not feeling well to find that. But if you can spend even 1 minute, like this, the egg timer that I showed, the hourglass that I showed earlier, I always start each client with one of them to always say, just give it 60 seconds, whatever it is, if it's a meditation, a prayer, so forth. And I love that you said you read your prayer aloud.
Yes, because words have power, right?
Yeah. And it's the throat chakra, which again, thyroid, Hashimoto's thyroid.
Yeah, and I grew up in a home where you couldn't speak your truth. So hello, thyroid disease.
Yeah. Well, and if that happened for generations, that's where you can go back. So if you're scratching your head going, oh my gosh, I see now. I always ask people to look for patterns. You know, where do you see patterns? My daughter is really good at that, because she's got this amazing, brilliant eye. She was always organizing things, kind of like my mom, even though our daughter is adopted, and etc. But, you know, what was I going to say? The thyroid is in the throat chakra when you're looking at energy centers. And when you're being dismissed or asked not to say and so forth, I love having clients
that can't speak your truth, right? You have to
hold
soften
back
words. Yes.
Hold your tongue.
Have you ever changed what you're going to say, and you actually feel the tightness in your throat? You're trying to choose your words and control versus just not vomiting, but just saying what you actually think and feel.
Yeah. And there are times that when, you have to know, you mentioned it earlier, when to speak and when not to speak. That's a
Oh,
big
pearls to
yoga
swine,
teacher.
right?
Yeah.
The Bible talks about don't give pearls to swine. You have to know who's going to hold something
Yeah.
important. Like you don't share something that someone's going to be careless with.
Yeah. And that's very important. And when you are able to discern that,
Yeah.
like what was your saying with the ear,
Say the right thing to the wrong ear.
the right thing to the wrong ear,
Yeah.
that's when you know you need to hold what you are going to say, because that energy that you have is so precious, so vital, and
Mm-hmm.
so valuable. And if it's going to fall on an ear that's not going to hear it, you
Right.
will be less likely for that tension in the throat to happen.
Right.
You
And
know?
you'll be less likely for that person to come back at you out of aggression.
Yes, or even I'm thinking of so often, for me, it was more people asked me advice for
Mhm.
what, free advice, and I
Yeah.
gave it, and then they did nothing with it.
Because it doesn't have value to them.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it was something that I saw my
Mhm.
health decline as I was doing that
Oh,
over and over, devaluing the gift that I had by giving it away for free.
yeah.
And if I had to look back and see signs of, hey, how did this thyroid thing come about for me? I would say that was definitely one of the aha moments. And I think if we can start looking at those things and seeing what is this energy center, or how is this related to everything is tied together, as you brought
Yeah. Yeah.
about in our
Eastern
conversation.
medicine says chakras.
Right.
Western medicine says junctions or plexuses where everything comes together in the body. So it's the
Meridians.
same thing,
Yeah.
just different vocabulary.
Yeah. And then you can have meridians with Chinese medicine. And when you bring in Ayurvedic, I mean, they all speak to the same
Oh,
things. They're all truths. They're just in different ways, shapes, and forms.
yeah.
And so I'm so thankful we've had this conversation. I just have to quickly look over my notes. I wrote the word open. I think I spoke about that already, being open. Oh, I know what the other thing was. Going back to the thyroid, the throat. When I have a client who has been, let's use the word silence, maybe in a marriage, you were talking about not being able to speak your truth wholeheartedly, maybe toning it down, watching your words,
Mhm.
any of those things. One of the first things I ask my clients to do is either hum or sing or
Yes.
just make some noise. I do my voice things before Kelly, I told you I sit in prayer and meditation before I start filming a show or meeting with a client or getting ready to speak into a microphone of any sort. I think that when you can clear
Mhm.
that energy and just sing as loud as you can, as long as you can, take a breath from your diaphragm as if you were singing in a chorus or playing like I did a woodwind instrument, flute, piccolo, saxophones, so forth,
Yeah.
and just breathe very deeply, a mindful breath like yoga. We say inhaling through the nose, filling the belly, allowing it to become, I like to say as my kids, a Buddha belly, a big Santa Claus
Mhm.
belly, and then filling your ribs and your collarbone and just make a sound with that exhale. And
Guttural sighs.
that's, yeah, that's a real healthy way to start your day. Or if you've just hung up from maybe an uncomfortable or confrontational conversation, or you feel frustrated, just allow that to move through you. You were speaking earlier about being stillness and action. I
Yeah.
also oftentimes ask people to take their prayer on a walk, put it
Yes.
to motion, whether
Yep.
it be around my pool deck, meditation, or out for a big walk at the beach. And all these little shifts, like we were talking about earlier, they are small, simple shifts
Mhm.
that allow bigger possibilities to come forth. So, Kelly, it's been so much fun. Thank you again for your generous offer, for your true transparency and sharing things that we weren't even prepared to share today. But I know that when that happens, it has changed someone's outlook. And so
Yeah.
for that, I commend you greatly. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. Thank you for finding your way through, I believe, 6 autoimmune diseases and really honing in on what you're here to do and sharing as you do with the world. I greatly appreciate that.
Well, you're very welcome. And thank you so much for inviting me to have this conversation. It was wonderful.
Thank you. And so if you are struggling, if you're looking in the mirror and not feeling that you're seeing the person you used to know or feeling a disconnect with who is looking back at you, or have been through something life-changing where you're ready to step in a bigger, bolder, more courageous way, my information is also in the show notes. Please reach out to me. I don't like seeing any man, woman, or even child being stuck in a place that is uncomfortable. As Kelly mentioned earlier, life is too short, and we want to align you back to where you can thrive the same way Kelly is today. Till next time, be exquisite. If you're following and listening in on Apple, please leave me a 1 to 3 sentence review. I am collecting them. I am collecting some certain things, not things that I have to dust off, but Apple reviews I am. And if you're watching in on YouTube, love to hear your comments, share your thoughts, reach out. And if you're with us on Experts and Authors TV, thank you for viewing. Till next time, be exquisite.